Hello televiewers, good evening and welcome to this very first edition of Prime Hour for this week. We are this day going to be looking at the situation that has been ongoing in this country for decades today, where civil servants are said to be collecting salaries when they effectively are not present at their respective job sites. Why has this gone on for so long? We also are going to be looking at the situation of teachers in the southwest and northwest regions. Should they be targeted for doing their jobs? Why are they molested? Why are some of them killed, kidnapped, and tortured? We are discussing these two topics with our panelists who are in the house already. Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel is in the house with us this Monday evening. He is the national president of the Reform Party. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, televiewers. Good evening, fellow panelists. It's a pleasure being with you after 1 month of media break. I hope we're going to enjoy ourselves today.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. We also are in the company of Mr. Gov't Mofo. He is an educationist, a social entrepreneur. We're glad to have you.
Thanks, Coop. It's a pleasure and honor to express my regards to the school in Boya, to put in Fanenda, and to say happy with them.
Okay. We also in the company of Mr. Sama Abamuwa. He is a social commentator and CEO of www.unamumu.com.
Unamumu.com.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you, Leo. It's my pleasure to be here on this program live for the first time.
Okay.
It's a singular pleasure to be in the company of Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel, whom I've known only online on the internet. I'm glad to be reuniting with my big brother and former batchmate at the university, Mr. George Mufo, and Mr. Tayong Elvis from Boya.
Okay. We also are in the company of Elvis Tayong. He is representing the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. He is the Deputy Secretary for Communication for that party. We're glad to have you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Leo. Thank you very much, and a special greetings to Professor Maurice Kamto, the president-elect of the party, and greetings to all those who are currently being incarcerated into the various dungeons of the prison for speaking out loud and for talking about the need for peace to return, while others are moving under the guise of presumption of innocence and they're relaxing while COVID funds are in their pockets. That said and done, greetings to Mr. and Mrs. Binka, who are all level-headed teachers in Boya, watching us right now, and the Mayor Eseme, you know, the Mayor of Kumba 1, who is watching us right away, alongside with Deco and a host of others from K-Town in Kumba, who are with us this morning. And thank God they have light after a long period without lights. I'm just coming from Kumba. It has not been easy sleeping in the darkness with mosquitoes and the heat. So we thank God that today, but then it's no guarantee, because we're speaking, you can still see power failure with no one explaining to you what is happening. What the kangaroo system.
Okay, we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we continue with our program for this evening. Welcome back. You're watching Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are going to start with you, Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel. Civil servants are seemingly not too fulfilled and are not too satisfied with what they are being paid. Or what would explain the fact that you are employed by the government and after a period you are no longer there but yet collecting your salaries?
Well, the first thing to note here is that the Cameroon civil service is just like, well, it has been built in the image of the government. Everything is centralized. So the numbers become too heavy for one unit to handle. That's why you have all this their nonsense that they bring together, whether it's CGPS or all that nonsense. You see, you go look for costly computers that are patched together to try to manage a system that is not manageable. So you have this consequence that the over-centralized system cannot keep track of those who are there and those who are not there. You cannot be managing people who are in Fuawa from Yaoundé. Some people are in Fukankam. You are managing it from Yaoundé. It's not possible. Decentralize this system. Let the regions manage the people who are working there. That way you know who comes to work and who doesn't come to work. So what we are experiencing is that the system is archaic. They try to manage an archaic system by bringing over sophisticated equipment that hasn't got the capacity of going down to the grassroots. So that, in my opinion, is the real reason why we have the delays in the treatment of files, the inaccuracy in the treatment of, in the management of the personnel. Somebody can leave, somebody who is in Betwa can leave and go into Gabon. It will take 6 months to know that that man has left, because the machines in Yaoundé don't have any means. If somebody doesn't fit in the information, the machines cannot get that information. You know what happens? Teachers, for instance, they collide with their principals, give them part of their salaries, go them abroad, and the principal sits quiet and keeps marking this man present. Others pay people from the quarter to sit in for them. And that can go on for years and years, so long as there's somebody in the classroom teaching. There is nobody there to find out that this person who is teaching the classroom is actually the teacher who was hired, who was sent by the state to teach in that class. It goes in. I have filed complaints myself to the ministry concerning those sort of cases.
Yeah, but you are talking about teachers. Are you saying that other ministries?
That's just an example.
Okay.
It's just an example I took. You see, you take an example of teachers, you see that they can go into an agreement with their principals. While they are absent, they take somebody from the quarter who sits in for them. And the salary passes. The salary, when it is paid, is shared among all the participants. Nobody knows. So that person can go to America. You don't even know that it's not there, because they have made the arrangement. It is true for other ministries where this practice prevails. I think if you had a system where attendance was verified by thumb printing and attendance machine, it will not be possible for anybody to cheat. It will not be possible for anybody who is absent to be paid, because if you're coming to work at the door of the place where you are supposed to work, you thumb print in the machine, you are ticked pay for that day. If you are absent, your thumb print will be absent. So I think this civil service needs to upgrade. They need to upgrade. They need to leave this their over centralization, come down to the grassroots so that control can be effective. If they don't do so, they will continue having ghost workers. They will continue having files that are pending for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. The system is archaic and they have to upgrade.
The system is archaic. But my focus to Senior Barrister was on the personnel itself. Are they leaving because they're not satisfied? Is it the fact that they don't love what they applied for, or what account for the fact that you are given opportunity to serve your nation, you abandon your duty post and off to other places while he's still collecting your salaries?
Yeah, once again, good evening to viewers. And I wish to say, when you present a thematic like this, we have to go to the genesis of, because what we see there is the effect. And we are talking about civil servants collecting salaries without work. You first of all have to find, you look at the major concepts there, civil servants, and then the end point is collecting salaries for what they want to live, or what they want to have their daily bread. And what is the mission of the civil service per se? They are actually supposed to be one of the ways that a state uses to equalize, to share its wealth. In reality, the civil service is actually supposed to be for what sociologists call social equalization, because while the economic sectors or sector produces the wealth, the politicians now find a way to now share it so that every component of the society has something from that national wealth. Now, so when you even realize, in most cases, when you go through what they call a recruitment process or employment processes, you have to first of all define the need for recruiting someone. After describing that or identifying that need, you profile what the job that person is coming to do, and therefore you look at somebody who fits that profile. And come to think about it, coming to now the civil servants, you will actually discover that the way they come in the first case is hardly based on any particular need that has been identified somewhere. It is based, first of all, out of political expediency and a way for the state to reduce social inequality, because the state cannot move on the street and be giving out monies to people individually. They have to create a mechanism whereby citizens of that state will have access to the national cake. And so in most cases you discover that you will even find persons who are hired as civil servants, but they don't even have a sitting chair nor a table to sit or talk less of even at times a space for them to even perform, because there is no job description, there is no particular stated objective that it is expected that at the end of the month you measure and say we are paying you this amount because of this the level of production that you've contributed to the development of the state. So in that particular case, you discover that most civil servants are first of all there for purpose of patrimonial exigencies, whereby a politician will need him in times of electioneering to go back to do canvassing and mobilization of voters in his or her community. And that is why you always find in most cases, take for instance in the ministry, you will find a minister who comes along with his own état-major. Now you ask yourself, what happens in a case where a minister is actually dismissed, not sent to another ministerial position? Where does his own or her own état-major goes to? It tells you that if you come with your own état-major, you add to the ones already existing there, and so you've discovered that there are persons who are just idling. Contrary to what the first speaker was saying, there is actually a mechanism for attendance registrars in most delegations and ministries, but in most cases it is actually not supervised, which means you find a situation where either the boss of that particular delegation or ministry comes straight away and stays. in his office and chatting or doing other things not related to work, and some probably, if you are in this particular case, does not give an instruction for a particular activity or for a particular a task to be performed, you hardly find a situation where civil servants actually take initiative, because first of all, we already have an over-bloated civil service beginning from the ministries. We have ministries in these countries that in reality their regulatory is questionable, and so you find first persons who are there with no job description first, and so you will not even know their relevance in terms of role, and so whether they come in or they go out, you will discover that it will not create any impact. So the presence or the absence is not usually felt.
Okay, Mr. Sama, we are talking about civil servants who are collecting salaries without effective work. When you look at the hours put in by the civil servants, you live in Boya, some of us live around, how effective is the work that is done by civil servants? Do they really engage themselves to work like persons in the private sector? Is there that control mechanism that will ensure, like Mr. Mufo was saying, that by the time the month draws to an end, we should be sure that you have done this to reflect what you receive from the state?
Leo, that is another ball game on its own. Okay. Entirely. But let me go back to what the senior barrister highlighted.
Yeah, but I hope you answer my question.
Yes. I'm coming back to it right away. I would ask the senior barrister to show me one ministry, one sector of the public service that is not infested by this malice of ghost workers or dishonest workers who collect salaries for work not done.
No, but he said everywhere. He said everywhere.
Because maybe I was somewhat uncomfortable when he pinpointed the teaching corps, and I'm saying that it is a cancer in the entire system. Show me just one service, and then I'll show you one perfect human being. We don't have. And so to come back to the question, Leo, the issue is on both sides. That civil servants collect salaries for work not done. A civil servant who absconds or who abandons duty and collects salaries is equally as bad as a civil servant who is on duty but does bad work. Those who are on post and do bad work or do not work at all. Just permit me use 30 seconds of your time. I left Boya on Saturday and I was driving to the west. At Bikoko, where there is that mixed control, there was a mini truck stationed in the middle of the road where there is that police and gendarme control. Somebody's vehicle got bad and he abandoned it there, probably to go look for spare parts and then come back and then repair it. I drove to the west on Saturday. On coming back yesterday, that truck is still there. I passed to Boya yesterday night by about 9 p.m. On my way back to your studios today, that truck is still there at a police control with the risks and the dangers that it exposes road users. We are talking about now of a case of people who are at work but do their work badly. So let me come back now to your question. Civil servants, do they put in as much as they get? If you go to the provisions of the International Labour Organizations, the standard work period for a worker, whether civil servant or not, is 8 hours per day. That's why we usually talk of the 40-hour week or maximum 48-hour week. But for some other course like teaching, you may find your work schedule spread out such that a teacher, for example, has periods where they have 3 periods in a day. Some other days they may have 5 periods in a day, which is not equivalent to 8 hours per se. But that totals to the work that a teacher, for example, in the teaching corps, if you are from the Higher Teachers Training College, second cycle, PLEC, you are supposed to put in 18 hours, which is 18 periods in a week. If you are from the first cycle, you are expected to do a maximum of 21 hours per week. Now, put all of that together. Some people do 21 hours per week. Some other people put 18 hours. But in some other course, again, as I said, you may be at work and you do not put in as much as. That boils down to what I'm sure the senior barrister was saying. Control. Unfortunately, it is not a typically Cameroonian problem. It is a public service problem across the board. The Cameroonian case may be exaggerated, but I am saying that the phenomenon of underwork, underperformance, or non-performance, or dubious performance by those who are not in the country, as he said, but still collect salaries in connivance with their immediate hierarchy, is a universal phenomenon. I'm sure some years back there was a French presidential candidate who stepped down before election because it was proven that his wife was collecting salaries in the council where he was the mayor for work that she was not. So she was considered as a ghost worker. If you follow Nigerian news, it is rampant in every Nigerian state, the phenomenon of ghost workers. Now, how do we analyze this issue, Leo? I look at it from two perspectives. Now, we are talking about a public service that is ill adapted to the changing times. We have a crude and rudimentary public service which is deliberately put in place. As I'm talking,
Mr. Sama, you are talking politics here. I'm saying no, you are trying to justify. I'm saying that you know that civil servants.
Yes, sir.
Do they put as much as is required of them?
And I've explained to you. And I've explained to you.
You are talking about rudimentary, adapted.
You have public servants who put in more than is required, but you have those who either by connivance with their bosses do not put, and those who by specific nature of their jobs do not put as much as is expected.
Okay, the kangaroo man, I just want you to give a perspective of what you have observed so far from the way our public servants serve us. Are they in the office at 7 or 8, and do they leave office by the time it's expected? That's the question I asked him. He was talking politics,
and I was answering. I was responding.
Yes. Well, because you said they spend 8 hours. You said they
are supposed to spend 8 hours.
But is that what is required? So if you just
services, there are specific services where you meet people on duty for 8 hours, but there are those who, by nature of their job, cannot be there for. I mean, 8 hours.
You could be there 8 hours and doing nothing.
And I explained that there is a problem of non-performance and poor performance.
Okay. Yeah, the kangaroo man.
Well, you know that when we're looking at a limping system already, these indications had been from time immemorial. Now, if you look at the number of hours this put in as in terms of service, you realize that there are departments in the civil service that by nature they have to put some kind of hours, like he was talking about the aspect of education. But if you take the civil service in general, you realize that there are those who put in hours that are hours at work and not hours in real service. I mean hours at work. Now, Mr. Lee, why do I take this anecdote? If you go to the ministries in Yaoundé, we constantly visit the ministries. What do you realize? You get to understand that some people get to work. By 11 o'clock, they leave their offices and they're around the drinking spot just around, not far from the ministries. And they will stay there till 3:30. When they come and they pick up their bags and they go home. While people are in the corridors waiting for them to attend to them. It's a call for concern. Now, in the whole cacophony, you realize that in all, the few areas where you see them want to be really at service is where they find it much more lucrative at a point in time, where the corruption can easily take place, where they can harvest some few things. Like if you send somebody to the road, why do you explain that you could send someone to work in an office in a delegation, say at the Ministry of Environment, and on Thursdays in Yaoundé, they already start going only after 12 o'clock, work has ended. Fridays, you will not see anybody attending to you. Those who are going to Bafusam, they are going on our day, on our this and that, and that's how they have gone. You discover that if you go into Yaoundé, they have Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays till midday for a little bit of seemingly serious work. After that, half of that day and the Friday itself is no work as per se. So all in all, realize that it is the system and the mechanism put in place. Once you don't have a proper mechanism to act as a check and balance on what people are effectively doing, coupled with the fact that the country has a policy of civil service oriented, whereby people are only fighting to get magical numbers and not thinking of serving the public as per se, explains why even the few who are there become very rude. Sometimes you go to someone's office and tell you, "So the mon bureau," in a very rude manner, and you begin to ask the question, but was this person put there to serve us or not? It is because of this policy, which is civil service oriented, and most at times they only need to arrive there to earn a living. So all of these things we put together accounts for why you see them behaving in the lackadaisical manner they find themselves. But then all in all, above all, is that they have another part of their subconscious part of the brain, which is that to make money in any way possible, because according to them, what they earn after what they do is not commensurate. I used to lament, Mr. Leo, you know, I'm a rural reporter. When you go to an area like Indian, you go to Mundemba, most of the civil service officers some have not been to the office for months, but they are at the regional quarters. Some of them are in the capital in Yaoundé, but like what Barrister said, they have a liaison connection between their SDOs and DOs and their immediate bosses. So that keeps them to be as far as they can be away. Once in a while, they chip in, this is for your credit, this thing is for you, you know. And when control is about to come, they signal them, and they might hurriedly come back and then take into one of few things and do you know, maneuver. Now I tell you, like we have been following the developments. CGPS 1 came in, and the Minister of Administration Reform told us that all right, they had some shortcomings. Monies were spent, no result recorded for CGPS 1. Now, as kangaroo as they are, they deceive us. Now they are going in for CGPS 2 that they say is more advanced than CGPS 1. In the CGPS 2, we still find ghost workers until they themselves are policy that you have 600 teachers who are doing this and that. We have more than 100,000 workers that cannot be accounted to be at a job site. It means that all the monies they are taking are contracts that they themselves are eating from those contracts. Because if you tell me that CGPS 1 is more effective than CGPS 2, and again we have more ghost workers in all the sectors, you know, they have made it in a way that, unfortunately, you are a teacher. We are sorry, Mr. Abang, most of the times the pointing finger goes to people because you have ministries and the departments.
We are the most populated ministry.
Thank you. So
ministry.
if we even call you, it's because you are what we call a case study in geography. I mean, your department, your ministerial department gives us a case study whereby we understand that most of you are business people.
Some recalcitrant,
yeah.
Maybe members of your core may be tarnishing the work that is done by some very excellent administrators. For example, I've worked very closely with your regional delegate, Madame Boahana Etonde, tireless woman who works from morning to night, going up and down. But unfortunately, there are some persons who may want to.
Let me chip in something. Yeah. Still, again, we like agree on the point that it is a generic problem in the public service. I worked with a principal whose name I may not, a very astute lady who told a teacher and told us at a staff meeting that teachers, I will not lie for anybody because I can't remember the last time I lied for myself. So if you think that for one reason or another you cannot be at work or you cannot work in my school, go look for your transfer. But that you are not there and I sit in for you and cover you, I will never do that. I am talking about the current deputy registrar of the GC board in charge of exams.
Okay.
And she was that type of person who made it clear that if you are not, if you are supposed to,
she was principal
of my school, bilingual grammar school.
Grammar school. Okay.
So if you are not at work, I write that you are not at work. But that I will lie for you that you are at work when you are not there. I will not do that. Okay. So it is a general problem, unfortunately, because the education ministries are the most populated.
Yeah, scapegoated.
We are.
Yes.
So while landing on the whole issue, the truth is that if we look at it, many of them is true receive the salaries for work not done, which is dishonesty. We must be able to admit that, because some will tell you that the money is small, the salary is small, but the question is you are not obliged to be there. Of course, we have few, I say very few, civil servants who have resigned. You understand? I mean, written officially to resign and pick up their different jobs. But now, if you say the money is small, which we understand because some give that as justification. It is true that the dependency rate with the country now is higher at the level of the civil service, civil servants rather. Why? Because the government has made in a way that since as we are service oriented, each time somebody passes a concours as already in, the entire family start relying on him or her. You know, it's very unfortunate. The uncles, the aunties start saying, okay, I will send my child to come and live with you. They don't even need to know whether you are on 200,000 francs or 250,000 francs. It's not their business. Why? Because in their mind, na teacher, na delegate, na worker for this office, it means they get money. Now, that is the scenario we have been able to live through. So at the end of it, the main thing is that while we understand that the government has done his own worst road because it's a kangaroo system that does not have what it takes to check, apart from corruption, whereby if I am a doctor, medical doctor in one, I can stay away from the hospital in one and do my business in Bamenda, so long as I can tip my regional delegate or I can tip my divisional officer, who is the one to give me to sign whether I'm present or not. But then, if you look at it critically, just as you're saying, there are persons who are up to date. Just like if you look at the regional delegate for public health in Bamenda, I think Dr. Kingsley. Now, those are people who are working day in, day out. You just cited Madam Boa, regional delegate at the secondary education in the Southwest. They work very well. But the question is, how many of them work well in the midst of thousands of others who are following the kangaroo system? So it becomes sometimes unnoticeable that few of them will work hard and retire even without taking a single bribe, while others who, wherever they are placed, they start thinking of which other means can I maneuver to get money, and they say the money is small. So at the end of it, the system itself has expired. I say has expired. We need a new civil service sector in this country. If you are relying on that Yaudo regime, it's a waste of time.
But you are depending on the regime yourself now for your security and other things now. No,
I'm depending at my own risk because God is the first person who is securing me. If you are relying on them, it is a risk of the highest order. They are not reliable. In fact, they are failed.
Please. Senior Barrister, we're talking about the situation. We're asking whether it is the fact that government is neglecting to effectively control what is happening on ground, or the fact that the teachers themselves are dishonest.
The civil servants themselves, please.
I'm coming. Why are you cutting me?
All right, sir.
I was going to say the teachers, the forest guards.
I'm happy now, sir. I'm happy now, sir.
You don't want teachers to be,
it's okay, sir.
To be case study.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay. Is it the fact that I was going to name all of these guys, the clerks, the
cite all of them?
Yes. Is it the fact that they are dishonest? Because he raised the issue that many would say the salaries are small, but if the salaries are small, before even getting into that department, you knew already that this was what was going to be given you as a take home. And why not deny before even engaging in it?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Before I come to that question, I was challenged here to give just one ministry where people walk. I mean, people don't write their names and go away. I will give you the ministry in charge of state control. Yeah. If you give me one civil servant there who writes his name and goes away, please bring him forward.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Supreme State Audit.
Supreme State Audit. My thanks to my able sister who is manning the place. They are quite serious. Go there, you see that these are people who are always on their duty posts. So, sir, we are not just targeting education. Your case is a sorry one. Please, if I tell a lie, if I say something that is not straight, correct me. How many teachers? I've not really said anything yet. I've not really said anything. You want to correct me, Mr. Sama?
Yes, sir.
Please, how many classes do you have in private schools? Don't allow us to open your buttocks, Master. Look those things. You see, it is public knowledge. If a teacher is posted to a school and he is given, for instance, 3 hours a day, what do you do of the remaining hours? You are free.
Yep.
We all know that you will have classes in private schools left and right.
Yeah.
You some even have farms that they go and cultivate. So my friend, look, don't try to be a saint. All the other ministries. All the other ministries, you see, you ask the question, is it that government doesn't control? Please, I want to be very honest. The very nature of the public service imposes that there should be laxity. The very nature.
Yep.
I will take a simple example. Mr. Leo, a civil servant is put on mission. Your mission is in Douala, your mission to Mbanga, go and do this in Mbanga and come back. He considers that one as his day off. He's gone in, see him only the following day. in my office, if I assign somebody to a task, you go and come report the same day.
Yep.
You see that by the nature of their job, they are bound to be lax, because when a mission order is given to somebody, the time of return is not stated. If it is stated, Mr. Sama, correct me. They never state the time of return. There is no consequence for returning that very day or returning the following day. In fact, he was on mission. When he comes back, he was on mission. His absence was duly justified. You see, the way their system is conceived makes its functioning last. You touch the element of salary. Master, this is very sorry. It's a sorry case. You take somebody who has a master's degree and you offer him 125,000. Some even offered 80,000. That man has a wife, he has children, he has rents to pay, he has... Sir, with all due respect, what do you expect him to do? Sit there and suffer, and his family will be thrown out of the house into the street? It is but normal that such people would try to make ends meet so as to stay afloat at the end of the month. You see, you cannot eat your cake and have it. If the government does not want to pay the people well, please suffer also that these people look for other means, alternative means of getting money. So that's why I said, from the very way the thing was designed, it is bound to be laxed, because they know that they don't pay well, so they are not stringent. See, they are not very strict on the control, because if they are strict, then the people will say, okay, you don't want us to go left, you don't want us to go right, give us what is our due, pay us well. Since they cannot pay well because it will cause an explosion in the budget, they are bound to keep the salaries low, also as a means of maintaining the people under servitude. If you are paid very well, take the case of Gabon. Magistrates in Gabon are paid 1.5 million. Yep. Bring that here, the magistrates will grow wings. As a means of putting them under servitude, those salaries are kept low. Go and die if you want to. I'm telling you the truth. That is it. They want to put them under the boot. Because if you are given the rightful salary like other magistrates everywhere, you will, master, will not be able to control you. You see? So that's the thing. It's also a matter of policy. You don't give out the monies because you know that those salaries are going to cost you trouble.
But maybe the economic situation of
what economic situation? How much when it comes to building luxurious stadiums? You don't think of economic situation. Leave that story, master. They don't want to pay. It's deliberate.
Very deliberate idea.
It's deliberate. They don't want to pay. When government wants to spend the money, we see them spending.
Okay.
When you have to buy armored cars to send to Frunkanka, do you cry of money?
Senior
Thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Liu and members of the panel. I'm worried the way issues concerning teachers discussed. Teachers teach during the day, and at night they need to correct assignment. Does the teaching extend to the evenings? I don't also support the idea of ghost teachers or ghost workers generally. Madame Bisson writing there. Madame Bisson, yes, she's not too happy with the way they are talking about them. Good evening, dear panelists. I blame the civil servants, but blame the government more. It is most at times in the nature of employees that if they are not checked or supervised, would rarely execute, and government rarely supervises no sanctions. It has never been heard of that the government has dismissed or penalized the civil servants for no work done or incompetence. Herman is writing from Douala here. Mr. Tazi says, I love for your moderation. People do not cut in when others are speaking. Kudos to you and your panelists. We are enjoying the program. Mr. Tazi is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Mr. Tazi. This one says, in a civilized system of governance, civil servants who abandon their duties are not paid. It is gross negligence by the government of Cameroon, given that even the highest authority the attitude of the executive arm of government has made Cameroonians to lose interest working for their country. Cameroonians are no longer patriotic. People are more concerned about their well-being than the well-being of the state. Good evening. Chang Fon Merrick is writing from Boya. Is it also this issue raised here, talking about the lack of patriotism in Cameroonians, because people really do not consider the service they render as working for the nation. That is that firm notion of wanting to develop this country through whatever we are doing.
Again, we go back again to the fundamentals. The question here, we are talking about civil servants collecting salaries without work. And you ask, is it dishonesty or government negligence? The first thing is that work by itself is a social commodity.
Okay. And
again, when you are a civil servant, by your own self-discipline, and you come to your office, by superior flow, that is work. By ensuring that your office environment is clean, that is work. But you start asking the question, is that what the person actually applied to do as a civil servant? The next thing I want to say is that as a civil servant, most of them operate under instructions. It means that if you are a hierarchical boss does not assign you, you will not assign yourself. And in that particular case now, you will not, because we should be talking from practical realities. Just imagine, we have been citing particular professional core here. When you even look at the way hours are assigned in the when they are doing a planning of the timetable, it is based on probably those who can shouter, or those who can stay quiet and accept because you can even see while they are even assigning, instantly there you find colleagues negotiating that okay, we are all of the same department, this other person is going to sit in for me and all of that. And come till tomorrow, we should be, in as much as we want to generalize the civil service corps, I have said the original principle of the civil service is a way for the state to share its resources. Because in terms of productivity, you cannot go to the budget and say this is the contribution of the civil service in the national GDP or the wealth of finance law per year and those type of things. But when you actually discover there are certain core, and that's where you actually see performance and productivity. Go to taxation, and you see how the place is like a beehive. Because you actually see there people are coming in and negotiating. Go to other offices, which I don't want to cite here. Go to other delegations. Cobweb is coming there because nobody even comes there. You discover that the civil servant there is even coming there. He comes and make a pillow there and is sleeping. You go to some of the offices in Yaoundé, you actually see long chair. And you actually see people actually coming to their offices and actually sleeping. So in that particular case, now when the month comes to an end, by right, that person has to go and collect salary because that is part of the obligations of the state vis-a-vis that particular civil servant. Okay. But now the question that we're asking ourselves now is, will that person be dishonest if his or her boss does not assign him or her to a particular assignment? You see, we are talking here about people going on what they call on mission. My brothers, all the missions are specific from beginning to the end. It is a mission because it has a beginning and an end, and there is a specific responsibility for you to go, and you come back and you submit your mission because somebody has to receive you on the other end and sign that you were there, and you come back, you submit the original document that sent you out. But I am saying that as every civil service in the whole world, you know, that let us not make a difference. There's a difference between civil service and public service. The police people falls under public service, but they are not civil servants. The military falls under public service, but they are not civil servants. And so when you discover that the civil service by itself is a citizen way, anybody can be a civil servant because it's a way for the state to share its national wealth. And at that time, it is not based on the fact that there is the existence of a particular duty that you are going to come and perform. It is based on the fact that the government wants to find a way to give out its wealth to its citizens.
Okay, Mr. Sama, why go for other things after securing a civil service job, when we know that millions of Cameroonians are dying to have matricular?
I want to corroborate. I've been itchy to corroborate what Elvis said.
Is it in connection with what I just asked you?
And I want to give credit to a civil servant, a teacher of my corps, who resigned.
Okay.
Mr. Martin Kmer, maths teacher in my school.
That's my friend.
20 years serving maths teacher.
That's my friend. Yeah.
Who got tired and saw greener pastures in the private sector, and wrote to the minister, and I have a copy of his letter of voluntary retirement. He resigned without being summoned for absenteeism. Good. So let me go back to your question. It comes down, Leo, to a national problem we have. Cameroon is a nation that is suffering from moral and civic kwashiorkor. Permit me use that term. We have a moral and civic deficiency in the system, which goes to add to what the last viewer texted, that it is a problem of patriotism, where that feeling, that consciousness of giving to the state as my own contribution, as part of the state, and this is my own contribution to the state, has been eroded. Now, is it that Cameroonians were born with a DNA of moral and civic deficiency, as I say? No. So it comes back now again to the role of the state, where the state has failed. Your question is asking if the state has been negligent. The state has not only been negligent, but the state has actively, as the barrister said, actively built a system that is redundant.
But are the workers themselves not dishonest?
That is, I have answered that by saying that we have a problem of civic and moral deficiency, which means that it boils down to that same issue of what? Dishonesty. And another viewer texted that it is in the nature of the human being to take advantage, to take opportunities. When the state leaves it open, there is a floodgate of opportunities for people to exploit. It will take just a very few. I wonder if there is any Cameroonian who sees a window of opportunity will not take. There are few. The barrister cited a bad example, taking the case of the Ministry of Supreme State Audit. But that is a specialized system that exists only in Yaoundé. Take that ministry to the suburbs and tell me after 1 year if you find the situation of people who are rigorous at work. My worry, Leo, is it is not just on the part of the citizens or the civil servants who are dishonest and have lost their sense of patriotism and moral and civic responsibilities, but it comes back to the state. As I hear Mr. Afa always says, it comes back to the state. The state has not only been negligent, but the state has actively. Cameroon, again, as we know, I am talking under the authority of the senior barrister, who should definitely master the law more than me. Cameroon, in the whole of Central Africa, has one of the lowest, if not at all, the lowest minimum salary. I mean, minimum wage, as we speak. What do you give as a salary to a category D worker, public servant, category D? Less than 80,000 francs. Give that to a clerk who lives in Yaoundé, who works in the central town, in the ministries, and he has to leave from Nkomo, from those other suburbs. Taxi fare one way is at least 500 francs. And then you have to go back, and you are on less than 80,000 francs because you are category D. That is why at least for once, I support the barrister there. It is a system that has been put in place to perpetuate the servitude of the people. But unfortunately, because the people too are motivated by that survival instinct, I must survive. I must keep my head above water level. So I must look for other opportunities, maybe to steal time from public work and do private work so that I can stay alive. Not that the state cannot punish. It is not that the government cannot fish out and punish. It can reduce drastically, but again, the government feels that consciousness of guilt. how much do we even pay them, and how do we even expect them to survive? It is just like I have a soldier friend who was sent to Widikum when this Anglophone crisis was at its peak, and he told me that the normal daily ration that they were supposed to be given as feeding money, they get less than 1/4 of it. At times they don't even get up to 1,000 francs, and their bosses tell them, "Allez-vous débrouiller." Allez-vous débrouiller means that go and make it out from the streets, from the people, and that's why they became goat thieves, dog thieves, fowl thieves, and everything. And I mean, you find a situation where people are forced to take advantage because you have created a system that you cannot control them and you cannot punish them for breaking your own laws because you are the first perpetrator of disorder.
Good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and all the panelists on the topic of civil servants taking salaries with no work. I think both the government and civil servants are to blame, but the most blame goes to the civil servants. Their actions show lack of patriotism. Secondly, they were not forced into various posts they are occupying, and before getting there, they knew the salaries are minute. If that is their major problem, the government only shares the blame for failure to put checks and balances to control the civil service. And for Ernest is writing from Dubai. Good evening to you. Good evening, Davidson from Moyuka. The state destroyed the civil service when it in 1993 salaries were reduced by 70%. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Teachers should not be the target here. The teacher has a lot in his hands, teaching within the day and doing marking of papers in the night and doing research to teach the next day. How will you blame a teacher that has become a target to Amber Boys for the past 4 years, where they can no longer go to teach or just moving free? Thanks. Mr. Niba is writing from Bomenda. That's going to be our second topic. Why should teachers be targeted? Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This is Divine from Bomenda. When I hear of ghost workers, my mind goes to those in the northwest and southwest. I don't blame them. Instead, my worry is on ghost representatives like MPs and senators from these regions. What do they do with the budget, given that they don't go to their constituencies? Okay. Good evening, panelists. I want to know what teachers prepare lessons notes at night. How is it graded? Ayon is writing from Kumba. Greetings, Mr. Liu. I love when Mr. Elvis speaks. Special greetings to him. Itoe Henry is writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Kuma. I agree with Senior Barrister Ashu. There is too much laxity in Cameroon civil service. They work less hours and expect huge salaries. Onkunji writing from Bomenda. Daisy writing from Kumba says, good evening, Mr. Liu, and my favorite panelist. Civil servants collecting salary without work is both dishonesty and government negligence. Some civil servants fought to get the job, not because they really want to work, but because they just needed the money. I don't support ghost civil servants. Daisy is a civil servant in, I'm sure, civil servants in Kumba. Now, stop calling, please. Now, Elvis Fatayong, why has it been difficult to get the civil service effectively cleaned up? We've seen several government making efforts, especially at the level of the Ministry of Public Service now and Administrative Reforms. Severally, they have said, okay, we've gotten ghost workers, and every year we find the phenomenon is still there, and we still have many persons who are living out of this country and are collecting salaries.
That is a very good question. You know, in a kangaroo system that is jumping in an anyhow direction, it is very difficult because of the system put in place by the regime in Yaoundé. Hear me very well, Yaoundé. When you decide to work on godfatherism, what do you expect? There's a person who is not qualified to be where he's supposed to be. Now, we are talking about civil service and all the like. Mr. Leo, somebody talk about patriotism. You cannot expect patriotism as before. Why? Because some people who get there are only looking for magical. If you look at the period during the Amadou Hydro and all the like, even some of our teachers who were teaching us, you could see that they taught retired poor, but they were committed. Sometimes they could move into their houses to further how you are faring. But you don't find a scenario here now, presently, because the whole thing of patriotism has been dashed out, because some persons who even go up, even especially, I'm sorry I always talk about teaching corps, even many who take up to the teaching corps are not even called up as per se. So they use it as an excuse to get a matricle. That's why sometimes you hear even the grammar, some teachers speak. You start asking whether they went through ENS, through Economer, but they went through and they have the certificates at hand. Why? Because their mind is not even where they are supposed to be. It's because most of them, the problem is using this as a stepping stone to get other avenues and secure a situation whereby they can get housing loans to build their houses, car loans, and all the like. So, all in all, we will get it difficult to stop. Why? Because godfatherism is center stage. As I said earlier, some persons somewhere, simply with the corruption system, because I'm coming over to corruption, but godfatherism is number one. Now, we understand, for example, I will tell you, Mr. Leo, we have our statesman Achidatu was buried over the weekend. Of course, it was covered by my media prime. I will tell you that it's a good, I'll call it a good father of mine. But I know many persons that only on recommendation, including former Minister Peter Gotabi, I mean on recommendation. He just come, Mr. Leo, how, I come here, please. You just say, well, you know, Your Excellency, I'm from this place. Just with a note, go and see this minister. As you go, bam, you are already in the system. And when the Kobu comes out, they have to call. I'm talking, he was doing good, yes. But the reality is that the question is, sometimes out of pity for those who came complaining to him that they need to survive, sometimes it did not go far to find out if they had what it takes to be sent to a NAM, taxation department, administration department, and all the like. So they were flushed in there. What do you expect of this kind of category of persons? Of course, the minister who hears that it is prime minister who is giving this order, or the minister for higher education, Peter Gotabi of blessed memory, is giving this term that he should be recruited, has no choice than to follow because he thinks that he's the boss. So these are the areas whereby we had wrong persons who had godfathers, and so when they get into the system, the moment they are not there, even the system knows that this person is put here by this person, and so we should not touch him, even when he's not on duty, because touching him means calling for trouble to come on you from the powers that be. It is a call for concern. So away from that, now the corruption mechanism sets in. Yaoundé is corrupt from start to finish, north, south, east, west. I say entirely. They know what I'm talking about. And so when you talk about this kind of system, Mr. Leo, that you are talking about checking on somebody, that a person has been abroad for over 15 years. CGPS 1 came, they skipped. CGPS 2 came, they skipped. Even the current various sensors they are carrying out, it is not still touching them. Why? Because a phone call to someone somewhere will tell you, no, sister Nongla, let's have a prayer. And it remains like that. No, over we have less, sister 10 person. So with the corruption fabric, and now for those who have been in Europe for close to 10 years, now they have made a lot of money, and what do? They have what it takes to buy their way through. These guys should not tell us as if they are angels in heaven there. No! Because before a special mission leaves to your center, sometimes even someone in Yaoundé has called you concern. That sache que il y a un côté qui est en train de venir semaine prochaine. Fais-toi tout pour être là où va ce que tu peux faire. And the next question is, qu'est-ce que je peux faire? Tu connais, non? And it ends there. You know that arrangements begin. And so you will discover that even what Mr. Abang is saying, there are principals who have been complaining. They don't have enough staff in the institutions, but they have people on their list who shows that they are working there, and they complain and write to divisional delegates, write to regional delegates, write to the ministry, and what is happening because according to the system they are there, whereas according to the chief of services in that area they lack personnel. And so somebody somewhere backs them up because money changes hands. You will not tell me that man was staying in Europe for about 10 years who runs millions in the business he's doing. He just needs to call you, give me the name of that chief controller who is coming. As you give him the name as the head of the area where the man is working, where you're a principal, or you're a divisional delegate, or a chief of service, he tells you, okay, I will talk with him. As he calls in, money flows in, he will just give him over.
Okay.
So, corruption and godfatherism, this system has expired.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The issue with ghost workers is that once a worker can fill the delegates' envelopes, then everything is clean and clear. It's Cosmos writing from Amanda. My regards to all the panelists, especially Mr. Elvis. I'm not sure all the delegates are corrupt. Frederick from Bomenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. No one can abandon a good salary in Cameroon to become a slave in the name of greener pastures in the Western world. The government encourages dismiss ghost workers when negligence, corruption, laxity, favoritism, nepotism, embezzlement, and lack of patriotism. All effective systems must be accompanied by honesty, accountability, transparency, and job supervision. Fred from Bamenda, please, Mr. Liu, read my message. I've read it. Both government and the civil servants are to blame, because how can the government be paying teachers with work done? This means the mismanagement of state funds. I'm sure you meant with no work done. Good evening. We are in a country where those on top are used to eating and don't care about the crumbs. The act of collecting salaries without work starts from the offices in Yaoundé. Those in charge of auditing are collecting salaries without working diligently. So the government is negligent. Okay. Good evening. Is Pivo Mboko writing from Bali. Your program is very interesting and educative. Thank you. Tayon said the truth, Mr. Liu. I'm 100% behind him. Greetings to you in the studio. Please help me differentiate between civil servant and civil service. Okay, the civil servant serves in the service. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the panelists in the studio. My own point of view is that it is very normal, especially here in Cameroon, that 70% of civil servants collect salaries without work costs, right from the head of state. Okay. Jerry is writing from Kwataroba in Mutengene. Good evening, Jerry. Good evening to you people there. Oh, please, you people should say something concerning what happened in Bamenda yesterday, because it's the most important thing. I'm writing from Yaoundé. Yes, definitely we are going to say something, but we want to be very sure. And yes, we also have information that a man was shot dead this afternoon in Bamenda by unknown men, and the wife is critically is in critical situation at the Bamenda Regional Hospital. The people keep dying like that. What do we do to make sure that civil servants effectively work for the money they are paid for?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Before I answer that question, let me try to clear the air on something I heard here. I think the distinction that was made between civil service and public service should not be, because civil service and public service looks like the French equivalent of a civil service. Fonction publique is a French equivalent, because there is a special status for the civil service. There is no special service. There's no document law governing the public service. So I think there is civil service. Public service is the French acronym equivalent, the French equivalent. All right. That said, what should be done to control what we are decrying? Like I earlier said, if you look at what is happening in the field, the problem arises because the control is from on top, from the top, not from the bottom. Reform Party advocates total decentralization, controlled by the people who are using the workers. Don't ask Yaoundé to effect control. The person who is using the workers should effect impersonal control. That's control that does not depend on the person. Put electronic control where these people are working. We have machines now that take digital thumbprint. If in your office you come in the morning and we don't see a thumbprint, there is no need to go bargain anywhere. You see, Mr. Leo, what Reform Party is proposing, the month is let's say 30 working days or 28 working days. From the 20th working day, all the services should send in the slips of people who have worked. Let us see the thumbprints. It is automatic. If your thumbprints don't show, please, there is no salary for you. You do that way.
You have a blank check.
You do that way, Yaoundé does not need to come to Douala. Everybody will have a salary if he is present. So these people, they are used to stealing from people's plan of action. I'm giving you that one free of charge. You can take. Go down to the various places where people work. Make sure that in every office there is a machine to register a thumbprint, so that you will not have ghost workers anymore. If somebody is American and asks another person to sit in from him, we shall, from the thumbprint, know that that man who is present there is not the original person. You see, there is no other way, because if you just leave this system of whereby one can negotiate with the boss, they connive with those in control. When you bring human behavior inside, there will be connivance. Introduce electronics and make the control impersonal. That way, there is no way any person can maneuver his way by fraud into the system. So I think that the control should come from the base. The place where the man is working should control him electronically. Some control that does not depend on the person. That way we know that you are present or you are absent. That's my humble proposal.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. George Mofo, what do we do to get our civil service more performant and better appreciated by the population?
Thanks. It begins from policy.
Okay.
You see, it is very easy to prescribe, but implementation becomes really challenging. Take for instance, when you go through the civil service code, I don't want to go into the polemics of whether it's civil service or public service, but I think we have to do some small revision of our notes to let us know that the civil service code prescribe how sanctions are actually given out to defaulters in the civil service. We have a scenario where we are, as civil servants, we have one ministry in this country that is supposed to regulate and actually centralize statistics when it comes to civil service. That ministry is not a ministry that also stops people's salary who don't come to work. Their responsibility is to be able to identify the ghost workers and send to the Ministry of Finance. And even the Ministry of Finance cannot automatically stop a civil servant salary who is absent. It has to be a procedure that goes right up to the Prime Ministry. And secondly, when you listen most time over the radio, they are calling some persons who have been staying away from work, and they give them deadline that you come before a particular deadline and all of that. It tells you that even the system is built in such a way whereby sanction is not automatic. It means that you must be given the benefit of defense, because even the list of 600 persons who were published as having absconded from their duties, if you look at the headings there, they actually asked them to come and justify that they were actually working, and they, for some reason the day control came around, they were not there. So that's why their names appear, and they are doing that, threatening that they will sanction them, which means that they might have even been for that particular day that somebody came around with to collect census, or came, because census is done, it is been announced in advance. That's one of the good things about our ministry, that is already having a corruption mechanism ingrained in it. Because you find a scenario whereby they actually announce that on this particular day they'll be coming around for census, and so everything. It goes back to the justification that I'm saying, that the civil service per se was not meant for productivity in terms of actually, it's a way that, because when you look at it, that's where the government recruits its politicians, or those who are bootlickers, those who are there for playing the dirty games and gossip and all of that, or those who are going to assign themselves chief and chindas and all of those places. It has its place, and so at the end of the day, when we understand that particular role, we'll be judging all of it from one scale. So the civil service as it exists everywhere is a tool in the hand of the executive. Okay.
Mr. Liu, the regime would not allow such electronic checks as Barrister Ashu is suggesting. That would remove a lot of cash from some pockets. That will be difficult to accept. Ojong is writing from Belgium. Good evening to you, Ojong. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Please form for the phone number of Mr. Fa. Can you just ask the number after the program? I can't do that now. Mr. Liu, good evening to you all in the studio. Courage to you all. I love your program. I think my Media Prime is the best English channel in the whole country, and Prime are the most watched and most organized English program. Kudos to you and your team. It's Elvis Brown writing from Shell, Newbell. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It was Cameroon soldiers, not unknown men, as you said. It's Kingsley writing from Abu Dhabi. Yes, I'm not disputing that. I said I was carrying out more investigations on that. I'm not saying the contrary. Good evening, Mr. Liu and crew. Negligence in all sectors of the civil service, health centers, and some rural areas can go for months without the government paid workers, always on meetings, seminars whose results are never seen. Sometimes they will come back only when there is health campaign with very heavy allowances. Rene is writing from Big Bingo. Good evening, Mr. Liu and seasoned panelists. The government is talking of ghost workers. What do they do with the money they retrieve from these so-called ghost workers? Glennis is writing from Bomenda. This one says it is a true like. Okay, I don't know what you're saying. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The system will announce those who traveled without compliance with those in power. Of course, those who have been absent from service for more than a decade are not booked, but rather those who fail to comply. The civil service is a failed structure. We need the right structures to have an enabling systems, not decrease that won't be followed up. Best regards from Bamenda. How do we fix it? You are in it.
I'm in it, Liu, and again, as we said, it's a systemic problem. It's a problem with the system, and which also hinges on the human fault, the human moral and the civic deficiency, as I said. Liu, one of the things I have observed and which I decry is in most, if not all, of our public service recruiting schools, like ENS, where I passed through, there is no course on, there is no subject on civic duty and civic responsibility. So you go through it, you are trained to be a public servant, but without you studying the deontology and the ethics of public service service rendering. And so you find so many people come out of the system and they are pushed into the public service or the civil service without really knowing what they ought to do and what public service entails. So it is a problem now with the education, with the curriculum and the training of the public servants.
Yeah, the preparation.
Yes,
yeah.
And that's where you find, unlike in the private sector where the private sector worker knows that the client or the customer is a king, in the public service, the public servant is paradoxically the master. And so he feels he is a lot. So it has to do with the training, with the education, with the curriculum of, la formation. And then it comes back again to the state. I may differ with Senior Barrister Ashu, who I may term is Emmanuel in Dreamland, that we should digitalize or we should make the system electronic. I mean, we cannot be talking of digitalizing or making our public service control system electronic where we don't even have the basic electronic devices of electricity. Do not reduce the public service to Yaoundé, Douala, Buea alone. Look at it globally, generically, and whether it is possible. I think what he said at the beginning of the program holds very strong, very good, and which I allude to perfectly. Effective decentralization, whether you call it federation or you call it decentralization, but let the powers of control, the powers of follow-up, the powers of monitoring, and even the powers of discipline and sanction go down to the grassroots. Now, if you look at the decentralization code, it is assumed that the councils take control of basic education. they recruit and they control manpower at that level. Leo, take a council like Boya, for example, and that the mayor of Boya Council has power to recruit, to pay, to control, to oversee the output of teachers in Boya councils. Imagine the level of effectiveness. Take secondary education and give it to the regional council of the Southwest, that they are able to control their teachers of secondary education and their personnel of health. That it is the Southwest Regional Council that controls. They recruit, they pay, they dismiss, they sanction. I mean, you would see effectiveness. We are not saying that all of these provisions will make Cameroon a safe haven where there will be no ghost workers or people who beat the system. But we shall be able to, with effective digitalization, we can be able to reduce it to the minimum, to the basic minimum. Not really thinking that we can find a Cameroon which is corruption free, as he said, or maybe where we will not have godfathers. It is impossible. Okay. But I think it can be reduced to the barest minimum. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The public service is stressing the civil servants a lot. What can be the reason why, after being declared successful in a competitive examination, compiled all the required documents and submitted, they are checked and only to be told that the documents are missing? Workers in Minfopra not trained. Kinga Song is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Eric from Bamenda, who are ghost workers. Ghost workers are those who don't go to work. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The system is about one. Why are they talking about ghost workers? But now, is it today the new ghost workers exist? As long as you comply and you are not in the country, your name will never be published by but a ghost workers. A Sono Divine is writing from Limbe. Good evening. It's all recruitment into public service. Clear. It's government negligence. How can a holder of a BSc in economics be admitted into ENS to be trained as a building construction teacher? Such teachers always get frustrated and fail, abandon their jobs, but keep collecting salaries. T-Boy is writing from Douala. Good evening to you, T-Boy. Cletus is writing from Douala also says, good evening, Mr. Liu. The civil service servants earning salaries without working. The problem is due to laxity and tribalism of the government. People are appointed to positions because of godfathers. Very briefly, how do we stop this? We may not have too much time to discuss here. I may just introduce you to our second topic, which has to do with what is happening in the Southwest and Northwest regions. We've heard of teachers being killed. We've seen some of their heads chopped off, and many last week another one was killed in Kumba, and it's just ongoing. Should they be killed for what they do as profession?
That killing is a call for concern. In this case, it is true, teachers should not be targeted, but at the same time, Cameroonians should not be targeted in general, because we are taking the case of a teacher or teachers because it has been very, very occurring. But I think that it cuts across the board, it cuts across the wall, that not just them. It's just like you could ask, should journalists also be targeted? Should this other worker or even a farmer, all of them have a role to play, because in any economy, each person with a specified duty has a role to play in terms of contributing to the upkeep of the economy. That's why sometimes we will not neglect a farmer, you will not neglect a truck pusher, because sometimes you can come from somewhere and you have loads to carry, and that other person is there to put the loads in his truck and push it. If he's not there, you find difficulties the moment you're arriving from where you're coming from. So the main issue here that is very disturbing is the fact that if teachers are targeted and we are not getting the headway from the government, it is a sign of a failed system. When teachers are targeted, civilians are targeted, it tells you that insecurity becomes the order of the day. And when this takes place, it becomes a call for concern. I have told some of you, even Sama, who is here, my good friend, that as you work for the state, you need to watch your step, because when you are removed out of the game, the state will not value the work you have been doing for over the years. It's evident. Because you will not explain to me that we are talking about issues of teachers here, and the governor of the Southwest region holds a security meeting and does not make mention of the fact that people were abducted, even the teachers, they were civil servants working for the state. So we think that
were you in the
security issue.
Were you in the security meeting? What makes you know that that was not the focus
Mr.
of
Leo,
the meeting?
I want to let you know that as a journalist, I think you're asking the question to the right person. The issue was not discussed in that security meeting.
Okay.
I can repeat it over and over.
Okay, but we are talking about teachers being
No,
targeted.
I'm giving you as an example that if the state is failing, if people are being killed, the other day we talk, like the one you talk about is historian Bamenda. When now is a driver who was killed also, a teacher is killed in cold blood in Kumba. I am from Kumba. I went there to see how the scenario was when Mr. Deficiency was killed. I've been in Kumba since Friday, looking at the station and looking at how the whole thing was in a total confusion. But at the end of it, I will let you know that even a single statement from the state has not come up. So if you tell me that why are teachers killed, we are hitting our head here finding out why should teachers be targeted. But the question is, those who are charged with maintaining security, what have they done? They are quiet in their cool places and we are here blowing grammar. Are you telling us that we should be looking at it, keeping them aside? No. So in a nutshell, Mr. Leon, there should be no reason, because first, we have teachers, we have social workers. In any conflict area, you have teachers, you have social workers, you have persons from the health sector, you have journalists as well. These persons are those, if you go to Syria, teachers are not targeted because though they have a buffer zone, now where they are teaching in Aleppo, they consider them as those who are the ones relaying knowledge to the vulnerable children who are caught in the midst of the war in Syria. So all the same, they have a vital role to play. And the worst of it is that everybody has passed through the hands of a teacher. I mean, everybody, as we speak. So at the end of it, you start asking, but why would someone target a teacher? It is a call for concern, because we think that in the midst of the confusion where we are now, telling you that we are in a kangaroo system that has failed, I mean, failed woefully, we begin to find answers for things that are difficult for us to find out. Now, you realize that if the teacher was wounded, for example, and he was responding to treatment, it would have been easier for us to move closer to him. Maybe in the course of questioning, he could give us maybe one or two things, maybe he has squabble with somebody or not. But in this scenario now, even those who carried out the act have not been apprehended. They too have been able to help us to find out why will you target a teacher for God's sake. Now where we are now, we are in a total state of confusion. Because as we keep on asking this question, Mr. Leo, it's a good thing we are asking the question, we are finding out why should teachers be targeted, just like why are others targeted. It could be lawyers. Sometimes a lawyer was adopted in Bamenda of recent.
Yeah, we're going to discuss the lawyers.
Yes.
Different
so it's a call for concern, but we think that it should not happen. And the state, I repeat, I will also end up hanging on the throne of the state, because the state that fails to provide total security in the midst of crisis means that the state at the point in time
are you saying that the state should send military men behind every teacher or every civilian?
Mr. Leo, the state will not send so far. This is not the first killing. If you have litanies of killings caused by what? Insecurity. It means that the state is not doing enough to curb the insecurity. It's simple.
Okay.
Very simple.
Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel, he just raised the point that almost all of us pass through teachers. How do we explain that we now turn back on those who made us to be who we are today, targeting them, killing them?
Mr. Leo, is it a secret that there is war in northwest and southwest regions where southern Cameroon?
Are you saying that war has no rules?
There are conventions.
There are international conventions that actually, like he said, says that journalists should not be targeted, teachers, social workers, and health workers.
Mr. Leo, I want to agree with Mr. Fa on this point. We all know that there is war raging in southern Cameroon, in what they call today northwest southwest regions. There is active war. There is ardent war raging. Why would any government that calls itself responsible put the lives of people at stake in a war zone? Like he was saying, he gave the good example of Syria. What stops the government from organizing these children into a protected area where they can school without being targeted, without the teachers and the children being targeted? What stops them? You see, I will blame this government for being negligent. They are negligent because they keep saying there is nothing going on. They keep undermining, underplaying what is happening and pretending that nothing is happening. People keep dying every day. You are talking of teachers. Who is the person that is not being killed there? What about the military men? They have families. They have children. When they die, it affects everybody. I mean, we all know there is war. Why pretend there is nothing and you allow teachers in a war zone? When you know that these people who want to redeem their independence say there should be no school. The government ought to know that the teachers are a prime target in this type of case. Like the case of Bamenda, I will ask you the question, who is killing? Who is killing the teachers? Somebody called you from, I don't know, where is Dubai to say that it was military men who killed. I was not in Bamenda. No, it was a Bamenda case. Somebody called you and said,
we are talking about teachers. The case the person is talking about yesterday.
The one yesterday was the teacher now? He was the teacher?
No.
That was a driver.
No.
It's a driver?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I thought it was a teacher.
Jibril Dubila.
No, he was not a teacher.
Okay, sir. I stand corrected. Now, you see, my point is, the state ought to take measures to bring these children together, put them in the securized zone, where the children and the teachers will not be attacked by any person, where they can school freely. That has not been done in any of the towns in southern Cameroon. It has not been done anywhere else. What we see is children fleeing for safety to the francophone areas where they school freely. But those who don't have parents this way, or who cannot even move, they remain in the danger zone. And you talk of these teachers, what can they do? They are between the nail and the hammer.
Yeah, but why target them?
Who is
Can we not spare? Can they not be spared?
Why do you,
in every community,
Mr. Leo, why do you allow them to work in a war zone without protection?
Why can the community not spare
Which
them?
community? The state that is supposed to protect the people. Why can the state not organize security for them?
The state.
That is it.
You say the state is in Yaoundé.
No. The state.
Now the teachers are
living.
living with you people in the community. Why target them?
Mr. Leo, let us be responsible for what we do.
Okay.
The state of Cameroon covers the entire national territory. They are responsible for security of life and property.
Correct.
I don't expect the state to stay in Yaoundé. The governor is there. The governors and prefects and SDOs and SDOs are there in the regions. The state is present. Why can the state not organize the security of the population, of the education population? Bring the children and the teachers into safe zones where education can be carried out without danger.
Senior Vice, are you saying that if you were amongst those carrying guns today, you would target a teacher because the state is not present?
Thank you, Mr. Liu. I don't want us to enter the blame game. To say amber shot teachers or soldier shot teachers. Put these people inside a secured zone. Let them study in all security without suffering from the blame zone, the blame game.
Mr. Mofo, very difficult situation for the teachers. They have been hammered severally, kidnapped severally, and they're confused. As we speak, I know of a teacher who was also kidnapped on his way from Womb to Bomenda yesterday by yes.
Yes, Kum,
yes.
You see, it's a very, very sad scenario that we are trying to, this our statements that we make here also whip up sentiment and hides now the real source of where we can get our which we care to call it salvation, because we seem to be far off from the reality. Kum, you need to be present in a town like Bamenda, I mean the heart of Bamenda, to understand how tense that town is in terms of question marks. That is, it's a scenario whereby you find people who are smiling, cosmetic smile, but they tell you that as they are seated here like this, anything can happen. And so you find people, and you see the people are going through. I think it was one of us who said here that Kumba has been for how many days without electricity. In Bamenda, it's no news. Even worse again that they don't have electricity, they don't have water. But you see the community and the forces of law and order, they are like ready to jump at each other. and you start asking that if we come and say this one is wrong or this one is right, it becomes as if we can grade Cameroonian blood and say the blood of one citizen is much more important than the blood of another citizen. And we now probably think that probably if an unemployed is killed, it might not be a topic of discussion on television. But I think the essence here is that the gun carriers who are actually using these guns, and it has rarely been said, we are talking about probably the death of the teacher, which happens before the killing of the other civilian in Bamenda.
And another civilian today.
And we are forgetting that also in that same it's in Bamenda, I think that same Saturday or Friday along Tarinkon, gunmen also entered in a supermarket and actually carted away with all the sales of that particular day.
At the fuel station.
What does this tell you? It tells you that the guns have actually fallen in the hands of people who have gone. I cannot explain what has happened. It is becoming now like a weapon, a toy, where people use it up and down and all of that. And we actually know in a regular state who are the ones who are supposed to use what they call legal force. And when we actually want to, because it is, we were asking the question, where has the community spirit of protecting its own? Because, I mean, let us picture a scenario where someone enters here and actually shot at one of us and goes away. And then it's only through the social media that we see gory photographs which are the persons who come and snap those photographs, the people who were carrying the guns. If the state wants to actually do what they are supposed to do, they should rather go behind those who actually use their camera to snap those gory images and circulate, because it means that they have also used you know, there is this journalist committed suicide where he was actually filming a child who was under starvation, extreme starvation, and a vulture was waiting by the side, and later on he was only interested in taking the photograph of the dying child without intervening, and that journalist, that camera reporter ended up committing suicide, because at the end of the day there was this moral absence of taking human life as a priority, but rather looking at the news making element to sell, because this is what is actually happening with the social media. Kamer, I want to say, and let me give you this opportunity, when we see the discussion on our social media group, it's really saddening, because you mean the
WhatsApp group of
yes, we use it as an opportunity to be doing counter-attack and defense and all of that. We should not be that. It becomes morally irresponsible, because at that point we are telling that who will be the next for us to also do the commentaries and all of that, and we now don't ask ourselves what can we do as a community to prevent or to actually reduce, or why not even eliminate the tension. Leo, a military man carrying a gun, after doing whatever they do, you see after what happened with the civilian that they kill in Foncha Street, what did the civilians, the population do? They went and scattered the temporal office or wherever they are carrying to. They are starting to do control and the rest. It tells you that same civilian, they can also organize themselves and also protect themselves from the reckless gun trotters coming from which direction. But again, we don't wait only when it has happened and blood has flown. They will start pumping images on our social media group, and we are doing commentaries and behaving as if human life has become like a plaything. I think it's very, very sad.
Very sad indeed. Mr. Sama, very difficult situation for you guys working in the southwest and other regions today.
Yeah, as the senior barrister said, we are caught between the nail and the hammer. Let me give you two anecdotes. A young friend of mine who is now a lawyer was a school head, a principal in a corner before the war. And at the height of the war in 2018, somebody called him and then I addressed him as Princey. Now we get town now. Would we do now put it down? And reminded him of the things he used to do to them in school as a principal, to discipline and moralize and educate them. And they told him that now we get down now. Would wait you for Ekona. That tells you the head of it. But let me give you another anecdote of another senior teacher who around 2019 was going for a medical checkup in Kumba from Boya. He had an appointment with a medical expert in Kumba, and he was being driven by his driver. He was sitting in front. Somewhere around Balangi, the boys emerged and stopped the car, and he knew that he was gone. He took his face towel and then covered his face, and the boys came and asked, who is this covering the face? And they pulled it out, and then one of them said, I know the pa. Now the pa will teach you history. It no be the worry we. That tells you that they saw someone and said, no, this man who taught us, he was not a nuisance to us. Take he go. And he left. Leo, a teacher of CPC Bali, was shot and killed by a military bullet. He was a discipline master some 2 years ago. Leo, my friend Yangson Mekwa of Fedcol Mutengene, his fingers were cut off by Amber Boys. That tells you that teachers are targeted. Leo, I have been reminded by a soldier at a checkpoint, a bitter soldier who took my ID card and saw teaching and said, c'est vous qui avez commencé ça, non? On va vous montrer. I got it right. And so, you have a situation where teachers and teaching the core, and even their students, have become an endangered species. Leo, you will hardly find a teacher in the northwest and the southwest who is going to the war zones of Batibo, Manfe, Nguti, Ndian division, who does not go to the police station to do a certificate of lost ID card, where he changes his profession. And a good number of them now have discarded their ID cards and are now establishing new ones with new professions, because the teacher is a target. Schooling is targeted. Now, why are teachers a target? Leo, Amber Boys have told teachers that you people started this thing and we came in to support you people, and you have now abandoned us and we are suffering. And Leo, as I said, a soldier has told me that we teachers provoked the war, and now they are on the field being killed by Amber Boys, and they are fighting, and we are feeling free going to school. So we are caught between two enemies who really have nothing to do with teaching, and with whose war we have little or nothing to do, just except for the fact that we are also part of the population. That is the situation in which we find ourselves, where teachers have to disguise like market women or farm-going women before they go to school in some places. The situation in Boya Central may be different, it's a bit sanitized, but it is pitiable and quite pitiful what teachers in those other remote places, or even in urban Bamenda, etc., go through. I want to register my bitterness in the intervention of the senior barrister and Fire Elvis, who behaved in the typical Cameroonian manner to say other causes are being targeted. And so you dilute the specificity of the teacher in this case and teaching.
When we know that
other professionals who are targeted, none is targeted. They are killed, yes. We have had postmasters who have been killed, nurses, but there is no corps that has been targeted by both sides, as the teaching corps and the teacher. Unless you want to behave like the typical Cameroonian who would say that Anglophones, or who may say that Anglophones do not have a problem, it is a general national problem that all regions have problems. No. Anglophones have a problem, and so teachers in this crisis have a problem. Because they are specifically targeted. It is no secret that some people think that schooling should be taken hostage and used as a bargaining chip. It is no news. And so anybody who wants to propagate teaching or who stands as a teacher or a stakeholder in teaching is targeted. You know, it is no hidden secret that even the state relies on the resumption of schooling to create the notion of a semblance of normalcy. So the state has everything to continuously push teachers. You know, we are talking about a situation where in 2017, the governor of the Salaries repeatedly sounded warnings against teachers and teachers and teachers, but you will never hear him sound warning against post office workers, agri workers who are not at work, because the government thinks that if we are able to get schools to return to normalcy, then we have won the war. And the other guys think that if we take schools hostage, because of the population that education pulls, if we take schools hostage, our message would go through. That is why we are targeted. And that explains it all. So that we should look at teachers and the teaching corps as a specific case, rather than dilute it in the general crisis that people are killed. They are killed, yes, but they are not targeted. They are killed as collateral damages, not as targets. Leo, I may talk here today, okay, and before I get to Boya, you hear something else because I pass for a teacher.
Okay.
It's unfortunate.
Yes. What we've heard very little from your associations, trade unions, very little condemnations. What is it? Is it that fear factor, or the fact that they themselves are not organized, or they are operating within very, very hot waters?
Mr. Leo, you know that when Mr. Sama puts his point through and then takes again on us as if we undermine, I think this very platform has spoken several times on programs concerning issues of teachers, unless maybe I'm daydreaming. And I think that we have been at the forefront, even defending the cause of teachers in several instances. Now, if we say that he wants us to take specifically on teachers, but we say that it is like a course and a remote course, whereby in history you cannot take one course and you learn on it from start to finish and you say this is the cause of it. You must be able. No, you're not getting me here. When you were talking about the other time, when we were talking about the civil servants and all the like, you were also diverting to other things to make your point clear. We don't see why you want us to remain only on teachers when teachers is the focus, yes, but we must be able to link it with other aspects revolving around. If you want to talk about it, you will know that teachers are targeted, yes. They have been at the forefront, even at the level of the administration. Just like we are also saying that when teachers are targeted, it is wrong. Just like we are also saying that you should not target any other person, because all of them to have a role to play in the society. Because teachers themselves, their own case becomes worse because they themselves are not organized. We beat the drum for them. Most of them are scared to speak out. Few of you will come on air to talk right, yes. But we think that Barrister himself here, myself, on several occasions, we have castigated several times when teachers are targeted in one way or the other. If we take here to take on even the teacher, if I went to Kumba because Mr. Fu was killed, it's not because I'm a teacher. I doubt how many of Teachers Association has left Boya and the rest to go and look at Mr. Fu's station. So we think that what Mr. Leo is saying is right, that on the nutshell, while we are castigating, while we are totally denouncing the killing of teachers, we think that teachers should also help us by taking the listen. We fight against what is happening to them, because barrister will fight more on those who are targeting lawyers. I will fight more on those who are targeting journalists. We can fight on others generally, but we should also know that we must play a leading role. Now, Mr. Leo, the most disturbing thing here is that I told you that we will say all this grammar left to right. People, teachers are not supposed to be targeted. As I said, their importance in the society. Where I am today is thanks to a teacher. I cannot forget when I heard that a teacher in Civic was killed, I was disturbed because as an alma mater, as a Boban, I felt too bad that my alma mater was touched. Now, what happens? The good question you ask is, what has happened with the teachers' associations that were quite vibrant before the crisis? Most of them have gone comatose. And so where we are now singing a song on their behalf, which we think that we will keep singing because our problem is the entire society must be made protected, whatever the case might be. Now, look at it, the fact. We're talking about the situation of Lebialem. You understand that of recent teachers were deployed from Lebialem to save other areas in the Southwest region. At the same time, they wanted schools to go on in Lebialem. It's only of recent that few of them were sent back, which many have not even gone back because the security situation is challenging. Where is the worry coming from? The big worry with the teachers being targeted. Let's say something clear. If we are moving on if the government wanted school, just like what Mr. Abang said, which is correct, that it is because the government knows that if schools are going on, it gives a semblance of things returning to normalcy. And the Amber Boys should know that if school goes on, it will also look as if they too are not on a winning side. True. But where is the problem coming from? The problem is coming from the fact that others who have not understood the core and the place of teachers go targeting them. Of course, we're talking about Ambers and also thieves. Remember, we have a handful of guys who have been arrested by the population. Even in Munya of recent, you know about the story in Munya, where two guys who came to violate a woman in a house pretending to be Ambers. When they were arrested and beaten, they said no, they are not Ambers. Instead, they were hungry. They were now transferred over by the angry population, beaten seriously before transferred to the police station for interrogation. Now, the main issue here is that if these teachers who have been sent to these areas were having relations with those the powers that be in Yaoundé, this war would have ended. I've been saying that over and over. If the Minister of Secondary Education had an elder brother who is in Lobialem to work, the grammar we are talking about will not be the same grammar. If a military personnel or a state official in Yaoundé has a direct cousin and a direct brother who is working in Wa or is working in Furawa, these issues will not be addressed the way we are talking, because they will know that from the precarious situation, they will not want to lose a loved one, and so they will do everything possible. Look at the situation. They want GC to go on in Kumba, yet Kumba is not secured as per se. So as they force, that school must go on to give a semblance everything is normal, is transferred to normalcy. Look at the casualties we are recording, which were denounced. But I keep on saying, my own role here is that the government has the main objective to provide security, especially to those who are known, who are considered as endangered species, teachers, so to say. So if you, the government, the teacher, Mr. Afu, was not supposed to live in his house. He was supposed to be in a camp whereby the other students are writing GCE, so that he's monitors GCE from start to finish. After GCE, he can now go maybe to a certain area where he can relax. But government has failed in their duty. I repeat again, because their relatives close to them are not in those areas concerned. The moment I spoke the same time with the military official someday, that if what is happening in the Northwest Southwest, in the Southern Cameroon, as we call it, was in a way that a general in Yaoundé had a brother on the field in Wa, or had a cousin on the field in Njukwa, the scenario would have been different.
Okay. Metam Augustine, writing from Boya, says, good evening, Mr. Liu and your cracked resource persons on set. Please, under no circumstance should the life of a teacher, school children, medical personnel, social worker, and clergymen be taken by whosoever. Again, Mr. I would wish your panelists to be balanced in the analysis regarding the question on the screen. The state is not Yaoundé or a group of persons somewhere. The state engulfed everybody living in a geographical area. Let's be first security of our communities. Okay, good evening to you, Metam. This one says, good evening, Mr. Liu, and to your guest. Actually, it's really pertinent, the point being raised by the senior barrister, that teachers are trapped between the nail and the hammer, with one party saying there should be no school and the other saying school should go on. Gilbert is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Gilbert, senior barrister. We have just 10 more minutes. We are going to share two minutes each. How do we save the lives of teachers? Mr. Samaye, we need him to be alive, eh?
Thank you, Mr. Liu. You see, I want to distance myself away from Mr. Samaye a bit when he says that teachers are targeted. I won't agree, because we know that the Amber Boys target the military, not teachers. The military target the Amber Boys, not teachers. The teachers are used as a game of, as a matter of a political tool. The Amber Boys say, we don't want school to go on. The government said we want school to go on. But nobody targets the teachers, because if that were the case, Mr. Sama, you would have given us the figure of teachers, the number of teachers killed. Are they up to 50? All right, thank you. Can you count? Excuse me. No, excuse me. Can you count the number of soldiers killed? Can you count the number of Amber Boys killed? No, we should be honest. Nobody targets teachers per se, because if that were the case, sir, not one will be left. How many teachers are there? No, sir. No. I wouldn't agree to that teachers are targeted. Teachers are used as a political tool by both sides. But I don't think they are targeted. No, sir. No, sir. Teachers are not targeted. Okay. From time to time, one or two may lose their lives, but they are not targeted, because if they are targeted, what does it cost? Last time we had a school that was attacked in Kumba. How many were killed? How many teachers were killed? School children were killed. Was any teacher killed? No, please, we should be honest.
Okay, so
teachers are not targeted.
Okay.
They are used as a political tool, but we are begging, we are calling on those warring factions, please spare the lives of teachers and school children.
Yeah, you
and treat that zone as a war zone. Take the people away, put them in secure places. This is examination period. If we had centers that were protected and all children were supposed to enter there and write in safety, that would be good.
Yeah, Mr. Sam.
We allow people to.
Mr. Ashu, I take exception to your declarations. That topic was not coined by Sama, and the topic is there on the screen. That should teachers be targeted, which means it's. I may have responded to corroborate it, but I think it is not. I am not the like out of it, but I am still saying that, and I remain steadfast on it, that teachers have been targeted by both sides, and I've given you practical cases. Unfortunately, before coming on set, I tried to get in touch with the regional delegate for secondary education of the Northwest, who did a presentation at the ordinary session of the Northwest Regional Council, giving figures of students who have been killed, of teachers who have been killed from 2017 to now. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to him, but I want to maybe promise you
why only in the Northwest?
I will send no. I mean a case. I mean a situation where the regional delegate for secondary education gave statistics, and which means teachers have been targeted. When a school was invaded in Limbe, and teachers were undressed and sent naked, is that not targeting? Are you really telling me that teachers have not been targeted?
They were not killed.
Do we have a different definition of the verb to target here?
Are you saying that?
Are we saying that education? Excuse me. Are we saying that education as a sector has not been targeted? And if you target a sector, have you not targeted the stakeholders in that sector? Can you honestly say teachers have not been targeted? But unfortunately, if I were to respond to your question, Leo, it's unfortunate, and may I use this platform to say, as a teacher, unreservedly, as a teacher, we need an educated Cameroonian society. We need an educated Northwest and Southwest, even after the war.
Okay.
Leo, let us take the role of education and put into perspective a free Southern Cameroon, an independent, maybe Amalan, or a Northwest and Southwest in the next 10 years without education for the 6th year coming. Let us put it into perspective, security-wise. Imagine the society we shall have. I am calling on those who are targeting teachers and teaching and the school system. We need an educated society even after this war. But what we are doing now, we are shooting ourselves in the foot, and even by the time this war comes to an end, the insecurity which would have resulted will swallow all of us.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
I think I love the exit of
Sama,
because I have been asking this question. Now let us just close our eyes for a few seconds and imagine that the war has come to an end. What next? What next? So every person cannot carry a gun. Every person cannot be a target. Every person. There are specialized persons who should be fighting. If we say the military is protecting the state land, while from other persons who are thinking that they have also a cause to challenge the military from their own land, then that confrontation should be between those two belligerent entities. But when you go now out of hand now, the whole thing boils down to a type of spectatorship that we are enjoying, and it only goes out of proportion when we become victim. And so when we become victim now, that's when now, don't forget, in the mind of the what they will call the war against terror, there are parties who know that because nobody is listening to them and stopping this thing, let them now create now a type of
terror situation,
so that the rest of the world should be talking about it. Because it's like when there's a lot of quietude, people are not happy, and you see the teaching corps, because of their population, become now the soft target, just like the medical corps. Because these are the persons whereby they touch the heart of, take a woman's a baby away from school or all those things, or you miss or a fail exam or pass exam or whatever. You see how the whole community is shaking. So they have understood. And you know, one of the things about the mind of the terrorist, he knows that come what may, he is not fighting to win, but he is fighting to create an impact, so that the world will know that even though they do something for me, I will show them that I exist.
Not fighting to win.
They will show that terrorists. When a terrorist is carrying a bomb on his body, he's not carrying a bomb on the body because he wants to create a scenario where the press and the other people should make the whole noise out of it. And then at the point in time, they have now seen the core, the teaching core, and the medical core, those vulnerable groups where the population is actually looking up to them for their own personal development and the rest, and they're making that a means now of, on both sides, you know, unfortunately, because when we even see the Summer is talking about some, I want to say they use the word egare, some people will say it's a
misguided.
You are the ones who started this thing, and so what? So if we started this thing, it was at that time, should we be carrying it? Are you not paid to protect the community, to protect the society? So why should we identify people based on their professional core and say people started this thing, so we have to also deal with you? Leaving out the enemy for whom we are supposed to be protecting the people, they start targeting other group of persons. Vice versa. The people too on the other side who are claiming that they want to defend the territory, why don't you also attack the people you consider invaders? Why are you attacking that people who are also harmless? So, you know, this thing we are saying here, that we use a channel like this to educate the factions who are fighting. That at the end of the day is a lose-lose type of thing, because the community, the society still needs educated, enlightened mind to reconstruct. The day this war comes to an end, we will still need sounded minds to be able to have a decent society where people can be able to sit and write. Because when you cannot write, history is lost, and the community is lost.
Far Evis Tayo, certainly you have one message for the respective communities with respect to our teachers.
The first thing I would say is that the government should take their responsibilities. You understand that first school living certificate papers were confiscated in Bingo and taken away. I mean, taken away. And the teachers, even the HMs themselves, all their cell phones taken away in a school, in an area where we said it is dangerous, and no security was on board while they were writing in that center at that Baptist primary school there in Bingo.
So teachers are targeted?
No, well, yeah, they're targeted, I'll say so. When I say targeted, they are targeted, it is true. The only difference here,
schools are targeted.
Schools, I will say more schools.
And not teachers, eh?
I will say more schools. Because when these guys went there in also, you discover that they were not harmed, you understand? They only collected the papers. It's a call for concern. They are not supposed to be targeted as such. For me, they're not supposed to move even to the school. So security was not even there. So we are saying that the government is taking the teachers for granted, taking the schools for granted. But besides that, Mr. Liu, I will be able to say here, without fear or favor, that the long-awaited ring road become terminating already. The ring road, they said it has come with 106 billion signed already, has not taken into consideration 2 regions, including Momo division. So I don't know whether they are talking and thinking the other way around. It is a call for concern, because Mbengui, the road from Ngi to Mbengui to Njikwa, where I come from, has a problem. Mr. Lo, I will cry by cry.
What are you saying?
I am saying that the ring road is supposed to take into consideration the 7 divisions are not 5 out of 7. Thank you.
You are starting another problem. Please, we want to say thank you for coming, Mr.
I think other things which I will come later.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. To conclude, I will say that you see, it does not pay anybody to ask people to live a normal life in a war zone. That is what we are witnessing. You see, we all know there is war there, and you ask teachers to go out in a war zone to go and teach. It is putting their lives in jeopardy, the lives of these teachers and the children. Please, the government should take its responsibility. Just like he said, they sent examination papers, they were confiscated. You see, please, we know the children have to write exams. Do that in a secured area. Put them in a secured area with their teachers. Let them learn, let them write their exams. Nobody will have any problem with that. Like some other person said, let the warring factions confront each other in an area that doesn't concern the people who are learning.
Yeah, but they should respect the education. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I hope we have been able to meet your objective this evening, because we still adhere the fact that one death too much is too much. So let us not discuss things that involve lives that are gone.
Okay. Thank you for coming, Mr. Sama.
Mr. Fu was just one of the endless numbers of teachers that have been killed, and I know that many more will still be targeted and many more will still be killed until this senseless war comes to an end.
Okay, may we pray it stops here?
We pray it stops.
That's our prayer. That's our prayer. I'm just being pragmatic, sir.
Yeah,
Well,
yes.
thanks. It's really a call for concern. We are ending a really sad note that we're smiling here that lives have to be lost. Just like you are just mentioning that another life lost again today. And if you imagine per week, we are now losing not less than 15 to 20 souls every day. So the war needs to come to an end. And those who call the shot need to help us get the war to an end. Special greetings to our good friend from Musa Solomon and Barrister Boyo, who are all watching us from Barrister Boyo, who are all watching us from Kumba right now, including our retired Basic Inspector Education Officer out there on Azimote. Thank you, Mr. Leo. We hope to come back again some other time.
I send greetings to the registrar and the officials of the GCE board who have so far for the past, I think, 8 days organized a hitch-free GCE exams, and we haven't had the type of scandals that we had in some other exams. Congratulations, kudos, and we hope that the end will be smooth as the beginning has been so far. Congratulations, sir.
You are talking about the back. Okay, we want to thank you all who came, and also you who watched from your respective homes, especially those of you who followed on social media. I've seen all the insults and accusations and everything. That's also part of democracy. We accept them, and we want to thank the production team. We want to thank the production team, Eli, Desmond, and those at the broadcasting, not forgetting you, Tabi, Tambe Bryant, supervising the work we do out here. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.